Hello all and welcome to the first lesson video for AP English. So today we are going to be talking about the rhetorical triangle. So as far as I've heard from when I taught this class last term, you guys have some familiarity with this. This isn't entirely new information, but a lot of people didn't remember at all too well what they talked about. Well, I am here to tell you that the rhetorical triangle is not just going to be something that you are going to flirt with a little bit. You are going to be tied to this person, to this idea for the entire semester, entire term. It's going to pop up many places. You're going to learn it now, and you are going to be applying it for pretty much every unit that you end up going through. So if you don't remember exactly what it is at this point in time, I assure you that by the end of this term, you probably would be able to recite or analyze the parts of the rhetorical triangle in your sleep. So what is the rhetorical triangle? Well, as you can imagine, it is literally a triangle. It has ethos, pathos, and logos at the 3 points, although the order of which they go isn't necessarily important. And maybe you're thinking, okay, that's great, it's a triangle, I'm still super confused. That's fine. Let me lay it out for you. The 3 points on the rhetorical triangle directly relate to the 3 classic appeals you should consider when communicating. And when I say communicating, I specifically mean when you're thinking about the way that any person talks to any other person ever, the way that you give a speech, the way that you write an essay, the way that you use language. Whether or not you know it, you've already been using emotional appeals. We're just going to learn the names behind it. So these are the 3 appeals. Once again, ethos, pathos, or pathos. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day how you pronounce that one. I'll pronounce it both ways because my brain can't pick a way. And logos. So ethos is the writer, and it's the way that the writer, or also known as the speaker, affects the argument or the way that they themselves change how they're arguing. So if you are the person that is actually writing a speech, you need to clarify who you are and what components you have to speak on the issue. Most of you guys you're going to be writing your own arguments at the end of the term, but mostly what you're going to be focused on is analyzing how others use it. So consider this. You're going into an academic lecture on something really obscure or something really difficult, and you see like a 16-year-old kid about to give a lecture. You're probably thinking, okay, well, what does this person, why do they have any say on, black hole theory or something like that? And it's the speaker's job to convince you, I know what I'm talking about. I know that I am the right person to be giving you this information. So when a speaker is using ethos, they might be citing things that would make them a person that is good to talk about the topic. So maybe the 16-year-old starts out by saying, I have my PhD from a university in this one subject, and you'd be like, yeah, that's pretty good ethos. That convinces me of it. Or maybe you do it through other ways, but at the end of the day, ethos is convincing the audience that what you're saying should be listened to, that you have any reason to be talking about it. So the purpose that you can think about is that it express a certain idea of their opinion. Does this speech explore a topic or give an inquiry to a problem? Is this person analyzing data, and are they the right person to be analyzing data? Are they reflecting on a topic? Are they advocating to a change? What ways is this person doing? What is this person doing to make you not only believe that they're the right person to be talking about this topic, but how are they examining whatever subject or argument that they're giving you? So pathos is the audience, and is how the audience makes a connection to the writing. It's also known as the emotional appeal. And that's not to say that whenever the speaker themselves shows emotion, that's pathos. No. It's more concerned about how the author is using emotion to sway the group one way or another. So in this case, you'd want to be really cognizant of the way that the speaker is talking to you. Once again, if you were the person making this speech and you were giving your speech to a bunch of college kids about black holes, you probably wouldn't be using all of the jargon that you would use with your colleagues because they just wouldn't understand it. So that's one way that you can get them to buy in more to your argument, is if you're using words that they would understand. You might also want to be very critical about how they're trying to invoke emotion within you. Are they addressing something that they hope will win their trust? Are they inviting loyalty, addressing pain? What are they doing so that you, even unconsciously, begin to agree with them? And then lastly, logos is context. This is also known as the logic, which is another way you can think of it. So every speech doesn't exist in a vacuum. Every argument that is being made exists in the bigger world at some point. So if you were the one writing it, you'd want to consider the background of your communication and the circumstances or the events that have preceded it. And maybe some data is going to be better than others, but at the same time, you as an audience member, if you're listening to an argument, a speech, if you're reading a letter, need to be considering, what are they doing to make me 100% agree with them? Even if this person has all of the qualifications to be speaking on a topic, even if this person is playing on my emotion, you also need to still consider, what sort of proof are they giving that make me want to believe them? It doesn't always have to be hard and fast scientific data, but every good argument, every good speech is driven or is cemented in the idea of some sort of logic behind it. So it might be just something where you're like, well, yeah, that makes sense, or it might be those actual numbers. So these are two important things to remember. They aren't necessarily going to come up, but when we're talking about the difference between a 3 paper and a 4 paper, because it's going to be a lot harder in this class to get a 4 on things, knowing the difference between these two is definitely what's going to bump you up to a 4. So you might want to think about the context of why someone is giving a speech or writing an article or doing X, Y, and Z. So you can say, what's the occasion? So what is the issue, problem, or situation that prompted someone to make this? But at the same time, exigence is something on the same page but slightly different. It's the reasoning that causes the prompts or someone to speak about. So if we think about the world itself, if we're talking about someone decides to write a speech, the occasion is maybe racial injustice. It's the general, it's the broad one. It's something where it's occurring all the time and it's an issue that happens. But maybe their exigence is that someone in their hometown was killed, they feel, unjustly. So it's that specific moment that made someone go, I'm going to go out and make a speech to try to sway a bunch of people to the way that I want them to think. So if we go back to the triangle, the important thing to remember is that a lot of times the writers aren't sitting there going, oh, how do I put ethos in my speech? They're just doing it naturally. However, it's our important job as people analyzing this to recognize that even if they aren't thinking about it in exact terms, it's still being used. In the same way, you cannot separate all these 3 things out. You cannot just have a speech with logos. A good speech, the ones that we're going to look at, they are always using all 3 of these things. They are things that all intertwine with each other. Ethos, which you can think of as like the writer, pathos or passion, or logos or logic, all of these things work together to help a speech really change the minds of people, or at least be considered successful.